What if the woman you rejected in the morning was the same woman who made you beg by midnight? What if the quiet girl from the village, the one you called naive, the one you said was too simple for your taste, turned out to be the most powerful thing that ever walked into your life? This is not a fairy tale. This happened. The name of the village was Ikpan, a small, quiet place where the roads were red dust, where the morning smelled like firewood and palm oil, and where everybody knew everybody's business before breakfast. Mama Ode had lived in this village for 62 years. She had 2 sons, one who ran away to Lagos and never came back, and one who stayed. The one who stayed was Ode. Ode was 35 years old, tall, broad shoulders, a man who had traveled. He had spent years in the city, worked hard, bought a car, built a house with zinc roof and painted walls, back in Ikpan. By village standards, Ode was doing very well for himself. But Ode was not married, and that was Mama Ode's biggest problem. She had tried everything. She had introduced him to the pastor's daughter. He said she was too loud. She had shown him pictures of a nurse from Calabar. He said she was too expensive. She had pointed at the teacher's daughter at church. He said she was too churchy. Mama Ode was tired, so she went back to something older than all of this, something that had been agreed upon long before Ode knew what love was. She went to find Mama Ochi.
The 2 women had been friends since before their children were born. They had grown up together, suffered together, buried their husbands in the same year. And one night, many years ago, sitting behind Mama Ochi's house with a fire between them and palm wine in their cups, they had made a promise to each other. If I have a girl and you have a boy, or you have a girl and I have a boy, we will join them together. We will join the 2 families. And if we do it right, if we seal it with the right prayers and the right hands, both families will rise. They had pressed their palms together that night. They had called on something older than themselves. The covenant was made. And now, 22 years after Ochi was born, Mama Ode had come to collect. Ochi was everything a village man could want, if a village man is what you are. She was 22 years old. Her skin was smooth like river clay after rain. Her figure was the kind that made old women in the market say, God did not sleep when he made this one. Hourglass from shoulder to waist to hip. Eyes that were big and soft and quiet. But it was her quietness that people remembered most. Ochi did not talk much. When she walked like she was trying not to disturb the air. When she greeted elders, she knelt fully, both knees on the ground, eyes down. She helped her mother cook, she fetched water, she went to church, she came back home. That was Ochi's life. She had never been to the city. She had never worn heels that were more than 2 inches. She had never sat in a restaurant and ordered food from a laminated menu. But she had never needed to, because the covenant her mother had made was already working on her behalf, even when she didn't know it. When Mama Ode first brought Ochi to the house, she called her son to the parlor, the way you call someone to receive good news. Ode walked in, looked at Ochi sitting on the plastic chair by the window, hands folded in her lap, eyes on the floor, like a student waiting for an examination result. And something in his chest shifted, not in a good way. He looked at his mother. His mother was smiling the way only mothers smile when they have already decided something and are now pretending to ask for your opinion. They exchanged pleasantries. Ochi answered every question in a voice so small you had to lean forward to hear it. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. After Ochi left that evening, Ode waited until he heard the gate close, and then he turned to his mother. Mama? Yes, my son. Where did you find this girl? Mama Ode straightened up. I found her from a good family. Her mother is my oldest friend. She is too quiet. Ode sat down and rubbed his face. She looks like someone that has never left this village. She can't even look me in the eye. I asked her what she likes to do and she said, help my mother cook. Mama, I live in this city. I need a woman who has seen life, someone sharp, someone who can hold conversation, not a girl who sits there like she's waiting for me to dismiss her. Mama Ode looked at her son for a long time. You don't know what you are looking at, she said simply. I know exactly what I am looking at. No, Mama Ode said, and she picked up her wrapper from the chair and stood.
You are looking at the surface and calling it the whole sea. Sleep tonight, Ode. Tomorrow things may look different. Ode hissed and went to his room. He was convinced this girl was not for him.
What Ode did not know, what nobody in that house told him, was what his mother had done the night before Ochi arrived. Mama Ode had walked to the back of the compound at midnight. She had lit a small candle. She had whispered the words she and Mama Ochi had agreed upon years ago. Let what is sleeping in her wake tonight. Let him see. Let him not be able to look away. She had covered the candle with a clay pot and left it there. The covenant was being activated.
It was past 10 o'clock. Mama Ode had invited a few relatives to the house that evening. Aunties, one uncle, 2 cousins, because she wanted people to see Oche again. She wanted to create pressure. She wanted Ode to see that other eyes found value in this girl, even if his did not yet. Oche had gone to the back room to change after dinner. Everyone was in the parlor. The generator was running. The ceiling fan was pushing warm air around the room. Ode was on his phone, half listening to his uncle tell a long story about a land dispute. And then the door opened. What walked out of that back room was not the same girl who had arrived. Or, more accurately, it was the same girl. Same face, same eyes. But everything else had shifted into something that nobody in that room was prepared for. Oche had changed into a dress. It was a simple dress, deep burgundy, fitted, nothing expensive, nothing imported. But on her body, that dress became a statement. Every curve that had been hidden under the loose church clothes she'd worn earlier was now present and accounted for. The hourglass figure, the one the market women had whispered about for years, was now visible in full. But it was not just the dress. She had let her hair down. She had added a small amount of makeup, just enough. Her eyes looked brighter. Her lips had color. She walked differently, not the careful, trying not to disturb the air walk from before. This walk had a natural rhythm to it, like she had finally been given permission to exist at full volume. And she smelled like something warm and soft and completely disarming. The parlor went quiet. Not the awkward kind of quiet, the witnessed something kind of quiet. Ode's phone dropped to his knee. His uncle stopped talking mid-sentence. One of the aunties, Auntie Boss, the loud one who always had something to say, actually pressed her hand to her chest. Oche walked to the empty seat, sat down, crossed one leg over the other, and said, in a voice that was still soft but now had a spine in it, "Sorry I took long. Is there more juice?"
Ode could not explain what happened to him in that moment. He had looked at this girl that afternoon and seen nothing that interested him. He had complained to his mother. He had used words like naive and too timid and has not seen life. But right now, sitting across the room from him, was a woman who looked like she had not only seen life, she looked like life had been taking notes from her. He sat up slowly. His uncle was still not talking. Mama Ode, from the corner of the room, was watching her son's face with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had planted a seed months ago and was now watching it break through the soil. "I told you," her eyes said. "You were looking at the surface." Later that night, after the relatives had gone and the generator had been turned off, Ode found himself standing outside the door of the guest room where Ochi was sleeping. He did not knock. He just stood there for a moment in the dark hallway, thinking about a girl who had been invisible to him 8 hours ago. He went back to his room. He lay on his bed. He stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in his 35 years of knowing exactly what he wanted in a woman, Ode was not sure of anything anymore. Inside Lifeful.
The next morning, something strange happened. Ode woke up early, unusual for him on a weekend. He went to the kitchen and found Ochi already there, making tea. She was back in simple clothes. The dress was gone. The hair was tied up. She looked like the quiet village girl again. But Ode now knew what was underneath the quiet. He sat at the kitchen table. "Good morning," Ochi said, not looking up from the stove. "Good morning," Ode said. "You sleep well?" "Yes, you?" "Not really." She looked at him then, just for a second. Something moved behind her eyes. She knew. Maybe she had always known the power she carried. Maybe she had only been waiting for the right moment to show it. She put the tea in front of him and turned back to the stove. And Ode sat there, holding the cup, realizing that this girl had not even tried to impress him. She had simply been herself, and it had undone him completely. He called his mother after breakfast. "Mama?" "Yes." "The girl? What about her? I want to know her better." Mama Ode said nothing for 3 seconds. "Then I will arrange it." After she hung up, she sat down in her room and pressed her hands together and said a quiet prayer, not of surprise, but of deep, ancient gratitude. The covenant was working exactly as it was supposed to. Inside life.
This is the part of the story that goes beyond what people can see with their eyes. Mama Ochi had not sent her daughter into that house unprepared. The night before Ochi traveled to Ikpan, Mama Ochi had called her daughter to the room that only the two of them ever entered. The room at the back of the house with the smooth mud floor and the small iron lantern that was only lit on important nights. They had sat together, and Mama Ochi had told her daughter the truth. You are going to a house where you have already been expected. This marriage was settled before you could walk. Your destiny and that man's destiny were joined before you even knew his name. Ochi had listened without speaking. You may feel afraid. You may feel like you are not enough. He may look at you like you are nothing. But I am telling you right now, there is something inside you that no city woman has. Not because you are better than them, but because you carry something that was placed inside you before you were born. When the time comes, don't hide it. Let it come out. What if he still doesn't want me? Ochi had asked. Mama Ochi had smiled. The smile of a woman who had already seen the end of his story. He will want you. The question is whether you will still want him after you see how fast he changes.
Ode began to make excuses to stay in Ikpan longer than he had planned. He had told his business partner he would be back in the city by Tuesday. Tuesday came and went. Then Thursday. He kept finding reasons. The car needed checking. He wanted to help his mother with something. He was not ready. The truth was simpler than any of those reasons. He did not want to leave the village while Ochi was still there. They began to talk more. Not in romantic movie ways. No sunset walks. No dramatic confessions. It was smaller than that and somehow more real. He found her sweeping the compound one afternoon, and instead of walking past, he stopped and asked her about her life. What she liked, what she had studied in school, what she thought about. He expected short, closed answers. Instead, Ochi talked for 45 minutes about her ideas, about what she had observed in the village, about things she had read in old magazines and thought about long after, about the kind of life she imagined, about her mother, about God, about small funny things that had happened in her childhood that made Ode laugh so hard his eyes watered. He walked away from that conversation feeling like someone had opened a window in a room he had been living in with the windows shut. She is not naive, he thought. She is just still. There is a big difference. Inside Lifo.
Auntie Boss, the loud auntie who had pressed her hand to her chest the night of the transformation, called her friend 3 days later. That quiet girl from the village, the one Mona Ode brought? Yes, what about her? Ode is finished. Finished how? Finished as in gone, hook, line and sinker. The man follows her with his eyes everywhere she goes. He doesn't even know he's doing it. You are joking. I was there. I saw it myself. That girl sat down and the whole room changed. I don't even know how to explain it. She didn't do anything extraordinary. She just walked in and everything shifted. Some people carry something, her friend said finally. Yes, Auntie Boss agreed. Some people carry something.
Ode was not a man who confused himself often. He had always known what he wanted, or thought he did. He wanted a woman who was sharp and city polished. A woman who could walk into a restaurant and handle herself. a woman who matched the life he had built. That was what he had told himself for years, and that preference had kept him single for so long that his mother had finally gone around him and activated a covenant. But now, sitting alone in his room on the 6th night of staying in Ikpan longer than planned, Ode had a conversation with himself that changed something. He thought about the women he had dated in the city, smart women, polished women, women with careers and opinions and good shoes. And he realized, with the uncomfortable honesty that only comes at night when you can't sleep, that all those relationships had one thing in common. In all of them, he had always been slightly on guard, always performing, always keeping up, always wondering if she was looking for something better, always competing in a quiet, exhausting way. With Ochi, there was none of that. She was not trying to impress him. She was not performing anything. She was just present, fully and completely herself. And that presence had more power than anything he had encountered in all his years in the city. He picked up his phone and called his mother. "Mama, when is Ochi going back?" "End of the week. Why?" "I don't want her to go yet." Another pause. Another 3 seconds. "Then tell her," Mama Ode said, and hung up. Inside LIFO.
He found her the next evening by the back of the compound, sitting on a low stool, paling something, humming something to herself. Ode came and sat on the cement step nearby. They were quiet together for a while. Then he said, "I was wrong about you." Ochi's hands kept moving, but she went still in another way, listening. "When I first saw you, I thought you were too simple for me. That is the truth. I'm telling you because I think you deserve honesty, more than you deserve a smooth talker." She looked at him. "I know," she said. He blinked. "You know?" "I could see it on your face that first day." Her voice was steady. "Men who have been in cities for long, they look at village girls like they are looking at an old car. Useful maybe, but not exciting." Ode felt the words land squarely. "But I also know," Ochi continued, "that what a person is on the surface and what they carry inside them are two different things. And I'm not offended by what you thought. I'm only interested in what you see now." Ode stared at her. 22 years old, never lived in the city, grew up with red dust roads and morning firewood. And she had just spoken with the clarity of someone twice her age, who had lived twice as much. "I see you now," he said quietly. "Good," she said, and went back to her peeling.
They were married 8 months later. The ceremony was in Eka. The whole village came. Mama Ode wore her best lace. Mama Ochi stood beside her at the front, and the 2 old women held hands for a long moment before the introduction started. 2 mothers who had made a promise over a fire many years ago, now watching that promise become real in front of them. Ode, in his agbada, watched Ochi walk in and felt the same thing he had felt that first night in the palo. That shift. That undoing. He had traveled the country. He had dated women from every kind of background. He had thought he knew exactly what he needed. And then, a quiet girl from a village with red dust roads had walked through a door in a burgundy dress, asked for more juice like she owned the air in the room, and that was the end of him. He tells people the story sometimes, not the whole story, not the part about the covenant and the midnight candle. That part stays between the mothers and whatever they called upon that night. But the human part, the part about how he complained that she was too timid, too naive, too local, that part he tells freely. "I was judging water by the glass," he says now, instead of tasting it. Inside LIFO. What a life.
And Ochi does not correct him when he tells this story. She just smiles. The smile of a woman who always knew. Some people are loud, so you know they're powerful. Some people are quiet, so the power doesn't leak. Don't mistake stillness for emptiness. The deepest rivers make the least noise. Share this story if it touched you. And if you're sleeping on someone quiet in your life right now, wake up. The end. Do well to subscribe, share, and come back for more videos. Bye bye. See you in our next video.